This love was so intense, and I wanted her to have the kind of life that she could build, that she deserved. Every single opportunity, every single adventure, I wanted her to build the life that she wanted. And I knew I couldn't ask her of that if I didn't do the same for me. I was always seeking my dad's approval, his attention. He left when I was 10, and that really changed the course of how I felt about myself as a human being, as a girl. If you want me to behave in a way that I didn't, like if you want me to be a different person and you want me to have handled the situation differently, I don't want to work here. You don't deserve me. I will leave.
Welcome to the Living Richly podcast. We are super excited and super lucky to have the opportunity to have Ray on our podcast today. We've had the pleasure of getting to know this incredible woman who's got such a wonderful story and journey as a single mom and an advocate for women's empowerment. So welcome, Ray.
Welcome.
We're going to be talking today about your journey of life, love, and self-discovery. It's going to be amazing. We're super excited. Super excited.
I'm excited.
We've had the opportunity to kind of get to know you, over the course of the past little while, and just you have such a powerful story to share. And we just thought, what better way than to have you be able to share it with so many women who listen to this show, just because you become such a source of inspiration for us as well. So why don't we kick it off by talking a little bit about your journey as a mom, being able to find feminism through that as well. Values and beliefs. I know that these are important to you. We've heard you kind of talk about them before. How did you find, or how did your values and beliefs evolve during pregnancy with your daughter and early motherhood? Why don't we start with that?
That's an easy first to get off.
Sure. Well, I'd like to say I hated being pregnant. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. As a 30-year-old pregnant woman who lifted weights my whole life, was a swimmer, was very athletic. Having something in my body, despite how much I loved it, was really difficult because I wasn't in control of my body anymore. Right. So I had to, there are no pictures of me pregnant. You will not find them on the internet or in my dad's roll of film or anywhere like there. They do not exist because I just wasn't comfortable. As soon as I gave birth to Avery though, oh my God, all of that discomfort vanished, completely vanished. And I immediately fell in love with this new person that I had brought into the world. And what it did for me was it allowed me to live my life for me for the very, very first time. I had grown up in a single mom household full of love. My mom is an amazing person, but at that time raised me with so much love and compassion. But I was always seeking my dad's approval, his attention. He left when I was 10, and that really changed the course of how I felt about myself as a human being, as a girl. I didn't have the value, the self-value that I maybe had as a younger child because my dad left and I thought I was disposable. So that continued throughout my life, and I lived my life according to his rules, societal rules. I married a person when I shouldn't have married a person because I thought I should get married. I thought I should do this job. I thought I should do all of these things to meet what society expects of me. So when I had Avery, all of those layers just started to fall off and little bits of me started to shine through, and it felt really good. And so I think that my value of parenting, love, authenticity started to really become important to me from day one when I met her.
Well, the power of the I shoulds, I know so well, and we talk a lot about on this show. I should, and the things you do out of those shoulds can be overwhelming, and at times are monumental things like getting married and having children with someone, right? And out of obligation or some story or script that we've told ourselves along the way. You've touched on a little bit, but how becoming a mom for you, it sounds like it kind of shaped you.
Yeah.
So how, maybe dive into that a little bit. Like how did that shape your identity? Yeah.
So I wanted my daughter, the second I had her,
Yeah.
It was crazy. I don't know. I know that not everybody has that birth story where they fall immediately in love with their new person, but I did instantaneously, deeply, deeply. Never prepared myself for this, even though I read all the books, like what to expect when you're expecting, first year, blah, blah, blah. This love was so intense. And I wanted her to have the kind of life that she could build, that she deserved. Every single opportunity, every single adventure, I wanted her to build the life that she wanted. And I knew I couldn't ask her of that if I didn't do the same for me. And that just opened up everything. Like it was like Pandora's box. It was immediate realization that I wasn't living my life for me, that I had lived it for everybody else. And so what that did for me was it forced me to start making some choices and realize that I needed to change a few things. And I did that. Like I started running again. I wasn't able to exercise during pregnancy because I had what they call an incompetent cervix. I don't think a woman came up with that phrase, I have to tell you.
I'm pretty certain not.
So I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't lift weights. I couldn't run. As soon as I had her, I was back running. I ran a 5K 7 weeks after giving birth.
Wow.
I do not advise that. Do not do that.
I relate to the running thing. I had something else, SPD. Symphysis pubis dysfunction, I think it's called, where I couldn't exercise at all.
Yeah.
I was a runner. And so I remember when I was pregnant, I would watch people run and I'd be like, I cannot wait to go for a run. I so relate to that. And that second when you're running again, it's like,
So you're feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I did to drown out that desire to run when I was pregnant? I sat on the couch and I did the 2 for me, 1 for you Timbit thing with my dog. Yeah, that was not healthy.
But required.
But dampened the missing of the athleticism.
But required. Yeah.
So then when I had Avery and I wanted her to have this life, I started running again. I started getting back into the gym and lifting heavy because I'm a heavy weightlifter. I quit my job in IT. And I went for something that paid almost half as much because it was for a not-for-profit. It was doing something that I really wanted to do.
Amazing.
And I had this incredible female boss, Gail. And when I met her for the interview, the compassion, the intelligence, the leadership that she offered, I thought immediately, this is where I want to be. So I started making these little incremental changes. And that led to bigger changes in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So with changes, the first word that comes into my mind is often sometimes challenges. Yeah. So if we talk about navigating challenges, being able to make those sacrifices as you walked through that journey, tell us a little bit more about the sacrifices that you feel you made for your daughter's well-being, particularly during that process of doing that on your own without a partner.
Yeah. So when Avery was in junior kindergarten, she was like 4 years old, I realized, so I had this epiphany. I walked out of a Starbucks wearing my Lululemon and got into my CRV, and I almost vomited all over myself in disgust at this person who was wearing and carrying all these brand labels. And I thought, who the fuck is this? This is not me. This is not who I am. I wanted to rip my skin off, jump in a tub of acid and just start over.
Wow.
And I realized I needed to leave the security of my marriage where I had someone to share the bills who had a pension. And I needed to do it now because when I looked in my daughter's eyes, there was no sparkle there anymore. She had picked up on the vibe in the house that we were both very unhappy.
Yeah.
And I needed to make that change now. And interestingly enough, I didn't want to make the change because I was afraid of divorcing because I have a daughter. But when I talked to these 2 guy friends of mine independently, they said, you need to make the change because you have a daughter. And so I did. And I left. It was a good divorce. I did it all myself. I did the separation papers. I did the divorce paperwork. We didn't engage a lawyer because we both agreed we needed to separate and live our own lives. But it meant I left the house. I left everything. I took my bed. I took a TV.
Wow.
I took my car. And I took half of Avery's belongings and some photos and some Christmas decorations, and I started my life over again. And that was really, really scary. Kind of. It was also really, really exciting. And there was this deep down belief inside of me that I was going to be okay, that this was going to be okay. But along that path of making that choice, I lost some really key people. My mom stopped talking to me for about 6 months.
Wow.
And she was my best friend. She was my safe space. But being a single mom, she didn't want me to go through what she had gone through.
Yeah.
The sacrifices, the no money.
Yeah.
But I did that. Like there were nights I didn't eat. Avery ate dinner, but I didn't eat because I just knew if I did eat, she wouldn't have lunch for tomorrow.
So how did those powerful experiences and tough journey, how do those shape you? Like, how does that shape your determination? Like, obviously, you know, you go through it and it shapes you as an individual. It has to, right? Those tough moments. What was sort of the outcome for you in those tough moments? Like, what can you take away from those moments?
That it's all going to be okay if you have the right guiding force. So I call my daughter my light, not to put pressure on her. She's not the reason I live my life, but she is my light. She is my North Star. As long as I kept her in mind as being okay in the outcome of whatever choices I was making, I knew I was on the right path. And I would hit bumpers, you know, like in a pinball game when you hit a bumper and it kind of shoots your ball off to the left or the right or wherever. Yeah. It can be a shit show. But as long as I regroup and recalibrate and focus on the process of getting to that light, it's all going to be okay. And I learned that. I have grit and determination, and I'm so much stronger than I ever realized. But I think we all have that inside of us, and we don't feel it or recognize it until we're faced with that adversity, until we have to show up for someone, for ourselves, and no one is going to catch us.
Yeah.
And you have to rely entirely on yourself, but you've got this little person who's counting on you, or maybe you have more than one little person.
Yeah.
And you have to make it okay. You will just keep moving forward. Just go one little step further today.
So powerful.
Yeah. I think we get caught up sometimes, and I think we've all kind of walked through the journey of divorce and being able to move through that one foot in front of the other. But I find sometimes people get so paralyzed with thinking about everything else down the road instead of that, you know, one step in front of the other, and just, you know, today I'm going to make today a great day, and I'm going to get through today, and I'm going to, you know, and so I can imagine, you know, for you being able to do this on your own with such a young child. You know, my girls were older when I separated. It doesn't matter what age they are, but it all brings different journeys and different, you know, so you know, just the way you share that story is so powerful on, you know, her eating, you know, at night and maybe you not, so that, you know, you could feed her the next day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you had those moments where you were like, just got to get through today, or, oh my God, but
I'll figure out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
But right now,
that's a tomorrow
I know
problem.
Yeah, exactly. And today I can control this, and I can do this, and I can, one thing I did was I had one of her best friends over, and what I did was I found this little basement apartment in a house because I wanted Avery to feel safe, because that's another one of my top values is stability, and I know that that's one of hers, and so I wanted her to feel safe and not be in like an environment that was too unfamiliar. So I got this 1-bedroom apartment, and we shared a bed. It was a tiny little kitchen. There's no dining room, little living room, and I had her friend come over. And that made it okay, because it made it normal that this friend could come over and they could have a play date, and they could do all the things that little girls want to do. They could play in the driveway, play chalk, hopscotch, whatever. But I had to make it okay in that moment. And I would figure out tomorrow. And that's sort of the approach that I took. And that's just what got me through every day. But I also had some women that I could count on. And it's funny because they're not in my life anymore, but they were there for a period of time, and they were going through similar life changes, and we just bonded together over that. And at the time I thought that they would be around forever. I couldn't anticipate my life without those two women.
Right.
But we were just there for each other for that period of time. And then when we didn't need each other, we shed each other, just like those layers.
Yeah.
It's cool.
My mom says it. I've quoted this before, but like some friendships come for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And sometimes there's a reason and it can be a reason in a season, but that reason sometimes is situational, and being able to find support in people that are going through the same thing is so needed. It's just, and it might not be that you have a whole lot in common outside of that one reason, which, sometimes is similar circumstances, single mom brings you together.
Yeah.
But so needed, right? At that time.
And being open to that as well.
Yeah.
I find as women, sometimes we feel the need to always soldier on and be the strong ones and know I could do it on my own, because we have such a, passion's not the right word, but such a desire to be able to say that I did this on my own. And while we celebrate that, also being able to be open to having that support and being open to, on those days that aren't so great, being open to have those people in your life and celebrating for what you've been able to achieve, but also having people, the right people in your circle who have your back on those days where you feel like you're just falling apart. And tacos fall apart too, but we still love them. So I don't know where that came from, but that's just such a great journey. And I love that you mentioned that they're not in your life now, but you mention it in a way that celebrates the time that you did have with them. Because I think as women, it's our friendships and relationships, and we've talked about this before on the show, naturally evolve depending on what stage in evolution we're at in our lives. And that's okay. And I love what your mom said around, seasons and reasons and
times.
With all of us raising young adults now, teenagers and young adults, I just think that's such a wonderful message. And I have that conversation with my daughter sometimes, like, it's okay to still move on from those friendships from before. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that you're growing and you're changing and you're in a different stage in your life.
Right. I totally relate to that. And I try and help my daughter understand that as well, because she's now in second year university. She's in the sciences, and that's not a realm that is overflowing with women, young women especially.
No.
And so she's finding her tribe through understanding who she is. It was funny. She, early on in this semester, the winter semester at university, she walked into the wrong classroom and she sat down and she was looking around and she thought, these aren't my people. Well, she was in like an arts classroom, like an English literature classroom. And she immediately got the vibe. These aren't my people. So she's really understood and listened to the guidance that she's received from me and other women in her life, and other men too, who contribute to that, of how to identify who she is and what's important to her, and to recognize that in other people. And it was funny that she could intrinsically feel that without even speaking to someone, but just by how she picked up the vibe in that room. And then it really wasn't the whatever molecular biology or whatever it is, that maybe it was the lack of microscopes that gave it away. I don't know.
But while she's your North Star, she's tuned into her North Star on, just becoming very intuitive. And I think that kind of speaks to you being able to lead by example as her mom, and also helping her be able to empower herself, just like you've empowered her. So if we kind of shift the focus a little bit and talk about your dedication to empowering women, Ray, extends so much more beyond your personal journey with what you've done. How do you think your actions have influenced and inspired other women?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny because we had this situation at work. So I love my job. I love the people I work with. But there was a time early on in my career when it was a very toxic situation. And the people involved in this toxicity were primarily women, women who were trying to undo each other to some degree. And I was caught in the middle of that. And I actually would come home from work crying. And my husband, John, would say to me, what is it that is making you cry? What is the problem here? What is causing you so much discomfort? And it was because it didn't align with my values. I didn't have the language to express it then, but I recognize it now looking back that it was these people, these two primary characters were acting in a way that just, it was almost bullying behavior against each other. And they were trying to pull in other people to support their cause. And it just reminded me so much of high school toxicity. And just that mean girl
drama.
The drama.
And I decided I wasn't going to be a part of it. And so I actually went into work one day, and something had taken place the day before. It was around the holidays, and we had been instructed to effectively ignore this entire team who had shown up at a restaurant where we were having our team lunch. And it just by chance, they showed up with their group as well. And they're my peers and my colleagues. And I was told, do not acknowledge them. Don't talk to them. Just pretend like they're not here.
Wow.
And I'm not that kind of person. I love talking to people. I want to talk to all of the people.
Right.
To my husband's chagrin sometimes late at night at the end of a party. And he's like, TikTok, Ray, let's go home. So the next day after I went home, and I cried after that experience of being told to ignore people and actually doing that. Like I didn't go up and say hi. I didn't wish them a happy holiday or Merry Christmas. I went the next day and I apologized to them and I cried. And I was a woman of 38 years old or something like that. And I cried and I said, I'm sorry that I was part of that pain for you. And they cried. And it caused not my behavior, but the whole toxic environment caused this HR intervention. And I was interviewed and I expressed my experience. And I said, you know what? If you want me to behave in a way that I didn't, like if you want me to be a different person and you want me to have handled the situation differently, I don't want to work here. You don't deserve me. I will leave.
Yeah. Good for you.
And that took a lot of guts because I'm the breadwinner in the family at that point.
Right.
I have a daughter. I have a pension in this place.
Yeah.
I have built up my reputation. I worked here for 5 years. I asked for this job.
Yeah.
And I don't quit anything, but I was ready to walk out that door. And I didn't realize it, but women were watching me. And since then, I have just continued to be given opportunities based on how I reacted in that situation, in that moment.
Wow.
People trusted me.
That's
powerful.
It's so powerful. And it speaks volumes about your character, and being able to stand up like that, especially in the workplace, is so hard, right? To find your voice, I think professionally is almost harder sometimes in those environments, especially too if it's a triggering event. Like, but most of us have experienced bullying at some point in our lives, and if that goes against one of your core values too, it is like deep rooted, right? So that is a very uncomfortable place that is deep rooted. So to have a voice after that is amazing, because that's a lot of work. It just like, that is the evolution, right? As you start to come into yourself. So on that, how do you help support other women, but keep those boundaries, right? So what are the boundaries that serve you well, but also wanting to help and uplift and support others?
So I didn't realize that people were actually watching my actions as I walked through that toxic journey. I had a team of all women at the time. I only had like 3 or 4 staff who reported directly into me, but they watched my response to that, and they understood that they could then in turn behave that way, and that I would support them, and I would be that protector that I'm a mama bear at work. I hold you accountable, but I will back you up. If you make a mistake, that's fine. Nobody's dead because of your mistake. It's not like we're frontline workers in a dangerous situation. I work in a friggin' office. Like, no one's going to die if you make a mistake. Fine. And from watching me walk my steps through that journey and have the courage, they found their own voices and they're able to represent themselves at work. And what that's done is, not only are they feeling happy to walk into work, they don't get the Sunday scaries. They actually love their job. I think 85% of my team are all mothers or parents.
Oh, wow.
And they're accepting challenges and promotions because of that. And I say that, so let me rephrase that a little bit. As a mom or as a parent, your child gets sick. You have to take time off. You have to take care of them. You know, daycare is full of germs. Then you've got school and you've got sports and lunch break and everything comes into your house. So they get sick, you get sick. It's that work-life balance. So many times in the past, women have turned down promotions or haven't asked for promotions because they have the parental responsibility and they don't think that they can do both. These people who I work with know they can do both. That taking a day off, if your kid is sick, do it. Absolutely. I know you're going to do your job.
Yeah.
And that we're going to be fine and we'll find that balance. And you can always hand it over to another woman on the team or another man who is supportive of you in your journey and they can pick up the slack for you. That's the team that I've built. And I didn't even realize I was building it just by behaving that way myself. And so there is now, I think I have a team of about 25 to 30 people who directly or indirectly report into me, and they all support one another. The collaborative energy on our team is phenomenal. It's renowned across the organization. People want to poach my team all the time.
Of course they do.
Because they're awesome and they've learned to support each other and they've learned to say, I need help. I need to take tomorrow off.
Yeah. That's also through solid leadership, right? So through you leading your team that way with empathy and compassion and allowing them to set boundaries, they feel heard, they feel seen. There's a listening that happens. All of that is cultivated, right? I mean, we've all, I think, worked in some sort of toxic work environment at some point, but that's an amazing gift to be able to give to the people you work with.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And to be able to give people permission. I think just hearing you share that, giving them permission to be their authentic selves, but also permission to ask for help, permission to not make it perfect, permission to have a bad day, permission to, and to be able to work in an environment and feel like you have that collaborative, supportive network that's cultivated from the top up because you've, as you've gone through your journey and shared your values and what's important and your beliefs and what's important to you. And that's been obviously passed on to your daughter, but also passed on to, you in your workspace, which we spend so much time at work in the jobs that we do. And it's probably one of the worst feelings to go to work and have that feeling on Sunday night. I know I've certainly experienced where I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And that's where, the whole mental health component kind of comes into play. But the fact that you've, been able to, and I will say, and, you could probably state this as it doesn't happen overnight, right? This is a gradual process where, because there's people going to be listening thinking, shit, I wish I had a great place like that to work. So this is something that you cultivate over time, right? It's like 100%. Seeds that a farmer plants and, things don't sprout right away. It's that constant cultivation and that nurturing and, that watering and that care that you've been able to.
It's those constant touch points with your team, whether you're a leader or a peer. You connect with your people. Like when COVID first hit and we were all sent to work from home because fortunately I worked in an office. I wasn't working in a service industry where I had to still show up. We were okay working from home. Yeah. And so every morning at 7:30, I would get on a call with all of my team. And it was a smaller team at that point too, but it was just a daily check-in. And literally, how are you today? Where's your head at today? And creating that safe space where they could cry, where they could talk about the fear about their children. I mean, we didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring. This was unprecedented in our lifespan. Like our parents didn't even deal with this as far as I'm aware. To have those daily check-ins to make sure everybody was okay, despite not knowing what tomorrow would bring. Again, looking at just today. How can we make today okay? That's what got us through together as a team, and it really knit us together. There's this really great book. It's called The Universe Has Your Back, and it's by Gabby Bernstein. And she
love Gabby Bernstein.
Oh my God, I love her. If I could go to one of her shows, I would pay a lot of money. Yeah. And she approaches things with love and not from fear. Yeah. And so I try and take that approach whenever I see an opportunity or a challenge or just a situation.
Yeah.
How can I approach this from a perspective of love or positivity and not from a perspective of, oh my God, what's going to happen if?
You balance supporting women very well. You balance supporting raising your daughter.
Yeah.
How do you personally maintain healthy boundaries, self-care?
I make a point to get a good night's sleep every night if I possibly can. Okay, so I'm 50 now and I'm in menopause. Wine is not my friend. I cannot have a glass of wine and expect to have a good night's sleep. So I really have to be conscious and make smart decisions about what I do when. So for me, sleep is really, really important because if I don't sleep, I'm just not in a good mood the next day. And then I don't feel like I'm enjoying my relationships with the people that are in my life. But I also trust my instincts. And if I will cheer on any woman at any point in their day, in their life, in their week. And I try really hard to listen. And I don't mean just to their words, but to their body language, to their eyes and what they're really trying to communicate.
Yeah.
If I pick up that you're actually trying to pull a fast one on me, that you're not actually being kind to me in that moment, fuck off.
Yeah.
I don't need you in my life. I am okay.
I love that.
Without you playing a role in my life. And that's
amazing.
That was something I learned through my divorce because when I divorced, I did that for me primarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I learned to do things for me and that's really important because when I do things for me, then I'm happy and I can be really, truly the most awesome version of Ray in every aspect of my life, in my parenting.
I love that.
In my romantic relationship with my husband, with my mom, at my job, with my friends. At the gym, I can sparkle the way I want to sparkle and have that vibe. So if you're going to bring toxicity or negativity, if you're going to talk about me behind my back, or if you don't think that we're a good fit, I'm okay with not having you around. And I will not send a text to someone just to check in on them if I've identified that they're that person.
That's an amazing place to be at.
Amazing. And it's a powerful statement. Again, giving permission to others, but of course, so setting yourself first in terms of this is where you are in the stage of your life, recognizing that you don't need everyone in your life to be, you need those people that are in your circle there to see you, win, cheer for you, help you when you need to be supported, but that you don't have any time for people who aren't authentic or, like you said, that are pulling a fast one on you or are just there for. And I think as women, we're very intuitive. We have radar. We can smell.
We have radar.
Authenticity a mile away. We have radar.
Well, and the more you lean into that and get we've talked about this before. Like if something like you talked about it with when it goes against your value, when your body you feel stuff a lot of the time, and when you start getting present to that and you practice it and you understand that just feels off, but you maybe can't put your finger on what it is. Just knowing that it's off should be enough for most people to trust it, but we don't. We generally we're like, oh, it's no big deal, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But for you to be that in tune with that is incredible.
And a lot of times we're worried about fear, disappointing others.
Exactly.
And so we don't trust our gut. We don't listen to, our feelings.
Or we put our feelings aside for the sake of somebody else because we want to make peace or we want to have harmony.
Yes.
Especially if it's a family member or an in-law, for example.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's so tough.
That's scary because what if your partner doesn't support your decision or you cause a little rift? Or, there's so many ripple effects that can come from one little missed message or miscommunication.
Right.
You have to be okay with that.
Yeah. And I love when you talk about fear of love because I use that one a lot. And I heard it on an Oprah podcast, but it's like everything we do is out of two things. It's either fear or love.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. And if you can come at it with love and not fear, right? It's that simple. If you look at every situation with that lens, it's an easy one for people to take away. Is it fear Am I acting out of fear? Or am I acting out of love?
That's right.
Am I reacting out of fear? Or am I reacting out of love?
And what a great way to be able to, sorry to interrupt you, but what a great way to be able to help guide your parenting and help teach your kids in a really simple way how to listen to their intuition and how to be okay with not having everybody in their corner and being okay with moving on from things, but also being able to identify fear or love, because it's just a very simple formula, I guess you can call it, that people can use no matter what age, but especially as we raise.
Careful, there's a microphone in front of you. I know it's your first podcast.
When did they put this here? So in my face. But using that as that way to be able to guide our children in a society filled with the pressures of having to be on or perfect or somebody that we're not all the time.
Right. Yeah. So when Avery was in grade 1, I want to say, she was in school, and there was an abundance of lice in that classroom. Like, it was everywhere. The teachers on that floor, every single teacher, and they were all women, they were wearing hats, toques, scarves, anything to protect their head. And nobody was able to resolve the problem. And it was over Thanksgiving, and Avery would come home and she would have lice again. Like, oh my God. And using Quilata shampoo, I know that that's a carcinogen. Yeah. But I had to keep doing it, repeating the treatment over and over again and combing through her hair. And she has my hair. Like, it's a lot of hair to go through, with one of those lice combs. It was painful. And I thought, I'm challenging this. This is not okay. And I wound up going to that school with the support of my boss at the time, and going to that school every Tuesday at lunch and doing lice checks. And I found a resource. I started a group for the parents in the classroom on Facebook, and another woman, her name was Kim, we met doing the lice checks. So she said, yes, I will come and do this too, because my son is also being affected. And this is ridiculous. Like, this needs to stop. Yeah. But the principal, who is a man, had refused to acknowledge the problem. He refused to send children home if they had lice, and he refused to acknowledge that there was a significant lice outbreak in his school. So Kim and I went every single week. I would do Tuesday, she would do Thursday, and we would spend our lunch hour combing through children's hair. When we found lice on one child's head, we would march that child down to the office and ask the office to call that parent and have them pick up their child. I was challenging the bureaucracy. I was challenging the man in power. And you know what? Those teachers still to this day are friends on my Facebook. And they were so grateful, because they couldn't execute that act, because they're in a position that was very sensitive, and they couldn't challenge their principal's authority. So I said, that's enough. We're going to do this. And Avery still remembers that to this day. She remembers the principal's name. I'm not going to say it because that's not nice. Yeah. But challenging for other people to make sure that they're safe is an absolute necessity in my book. And I will, again, that mama bear comes out. There's someone who needs help, and they happen to all be women. I'm dropping my lunch hour. I don't need it. I'm going in and I'm going to fix this problem, because I can affect change. And I think it's really important that women listen, like you said, Kate, to their instincts, recognize when they need to rise into their power and take control, and just try.
And go. From, like, you obviously feel, and I love that you're so supportive of women from, like, a legacy standpoint. That's a powerful word, but, like, what would you like to leave? Like, what is that legacy for your daughter, or for other women? What is that one thing that you think you really want those close to you, i.e. your daughter or other women, just to take away, if there was one thing?
That they are enough. You are enough. Yeah. And because I didn't realize that until I became a mom, and I wish I'd known it sooner. But also I don't, because I love who I am now, and I recognize that my journey created who I am today. Yeah. And so without that, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you, most likely. So definitely, you are enough. And remember that when you walk into a room, no matter who's in that room, and no matter what situation you're facing.
Wow.
I love the beauty and the simplicity of that.
Right.
It's just, even using it as a mantra every morning, or in times where you feel like you're questioning yourself.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's one of my meditation ones.
Oh,
It's an I am enough.
yes.
Period.
I am enough.
And there's nothing else after it.
I love it.
That's right.
And that might be a whole meditation. But half an hour. I am enough. I am enough. I say it different ways.
But the simplicity, right? We tend,
huge.
as not that as women we would ever overcomplicate anything.
Never.
Yeah.
I mean, Rob tells me I don't overcomplicate anything, but just what a beautiful, simple, clean, powerful statement.
And you don't have to justify
No.
what
Justify
it means to
anything.
anybody.
Just that.
Just that.
I love it.
Yeah.
If just to kind of touch on that, inspiration and empowerment. So lots of women listening who may be facing similar challenges, whether it's going through a divorce, having the courage to walk that journey, raising a child on their own, finding their place in a work environment, whether it's male dominated environment or not, or a toxic work environment. What message of inspiration would you have for women seeking challenges, or not seeking challenges, who are facing similar challenges or seeking to live more authentically?
I think it really is just take it for today. What can you do today? Also, go for a walk, because that will help you really just take a break from everything and focus just on you, and something will come to you. I think it was in like an Arnold Schwarzenegger book that I read, and he talks about how so many smart people go for walks just to figure shit out.
Right.
Just go for a walk. It simplifies everything. It'll clear your head, and it will help you get through that moment of whatever it is that you're facing, because I promise you, it's not that hard that you can't fix it, solve it, do it, whatever the it is that you need to accomplish. Take a minute, go for a walk. The answer will come to you. And if it doesn't, just do your best today, because maybe tomorrow will bring you something you have no idea. Maybe tomorrow will bring you something better. Just get through today. Try something today.
Yeah. I love the stillness, like the walk, running. That was running for me. I would solve
all the world's problems.
Totally, world hunger. I had it all.
Yeah.
World peace. I had it all sorted. But I go for a run, and just like with a lot of loud music, 'cause that's how I like to run.
Oh yeah.
And I would just run, and I would tune out, and all of a sudden everything would just start to get so clear for me.
Yeah.
Crystal clear when you let go and you're just there.
It's amazing when we carve time out and we take ourselves away out of an environment that we're in to be able to do something for ourselves, like go for a walk, go for a run. I have a friend that she loves water, so she swims. And for her, that's just very therapeutic and helps her clear her mind.
Yeah.
As we're nearing the end of the show, I have a final question. I'd love to know what living richly means to you.
Okay, so I'm going to really date myself here. I knew you'd ask this question, so I gave it some thought. Do you remember the cartoon? I'm going to just look at my notes here. For Better or for Worse?
Yes.
Okay.
I love For Better.
Okay.
Too. Oh my God, it was so good.
It was so good.
That. Yeah.
So there was this one particular cartoon that was on a Saturday, and the mom in the cartoon asked their child to mow the lawn. And the message in the cartoon was basically, you can either hate every second of mowing the lawn, or you can find the joy in mowing the lawn. And so living richly to me means I wake up in the morning. Maybe I feel like shit. Maybe I don't. I'm waking up and I'm looking every day to find that joy in whatever it is that I'm facing that day. And that's what living richly means to me, is finding those pockets of joy, even in things that I just have to get done. That to me is living richly, because you can find that everywhere if you just look for it. If you just take a minute.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
I love that.
I love it so much so that I have it tattooed on my arm.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I have love on the other arm, because that's a reminder to me to choose love and not fear.
That's amazing.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for being on the show, for sharing your story. So inspiring. And I know you're going to inspire others. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure having you on.
It's so good to talk with you too.
My
today.
cheeks hurt from smiling. So.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. It was a great episode. As always, you can check out our website at livingrichlly.me for all of the show notes from today's show. You can also sign up for our Facebook page. Our Living Richly Nation is taking off. There's so many powerful conversations happening each and every day. And now live, which we're very excited about, is the 15-day life vision challenge. Always such a mouthful to say, but I did it. It's such a powerful tool. It's free. It's online. You can do it at your own pace, and it's going to help you map out where you want to be in life. Very powerful. So be sure to check it out. Until next time, get out there and continue living your best life.